Hi, everyone, and welcome to the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Dr. Robert Marks Show. I'm excited first to welcome the host of the show, Dr. Robert Marks. Dr. Marks, how are you? And I know you're excited about our guest today, aren't you?
Always excited to talk to anybody in the Trump family.
So we have Fred C. Trump the third on the show. Thanks, Fred. Your book is All in the Family, The Trumps and How We Got This Way. How are you, Fred? Thanks for stopping by.
I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's go ahead, Dr. Marks, for your first question.
Hey, Fred, this is Dr. Marks. I am actually a author and a medical publicist with the University of Miami School of Medicine, retired.
Oh,
Question I have for
great.
you is all in the family. Who is Archie Bunker in your book?
That's a great question. It would probably be my grandfather.
Your grandfather. Well, in looking at some of the excerpts from your book, I noticed you were very close to your father and that you
Yep.
have a child with some disabilities. Now, how did your uncle, Donald Trump, the former president, interface with that? I think you have some criticisms.
Yeah. Well, my dad, if you may know, passed away at an early age, at the age of 43, and my son William, who is 25 now, has very complex disabilities. He was born with a genetic mutation, KCNQ2, and just Donald's interaction with William has been nil. He has never asked to meet William, has never met William. Will occasionally ask how he's doing, but of course, in the book, I describe the last time that I did speak with Donald was when he said that William should just die.
Oh, that's pretty strong. Did he do anything positive to help him with rehabilitation or medical care?
It's a complicated story, so I'll try to boil it down real quick.
Please.
In After William was born in 1999, he was in hospital for 7 total weeks, 3 different hospitals. The first being Mount Sinai, Manhattan, where he had hundreds of seizures a day. And Donald and my siblings lived within 2 miles of the hospital. Never once visited. Frankly, never even called to see how he was doing. Soon after William was home after 7 weeks in hospital, I received a note from Donald's attorney saying that my sister and I were taken out of my grandfather's will. We subsequently learned that Donald had hatched a scheme. Now, if you remember back in those days, Donald was in very dire financial straits.
Do
So
remember that.
embarrassing
Yes.
that so embarrassing that the banks had to put him on an allowance. So this was one of the ways for Donald to try to take away the money that my sister and I were owed because of the death of my father. Um, Keep in mind that Donald, again, after my dad died, was named my trustee, which I take to mean that he has to protect my interests, protect me, protect my family. He did the exact opposite. So we settled that case, which is interesting because Donald says he never settles cases. Well, here I settled with him, so I guess that makes me a winner in some way. Uh,
Yeah.
about 10 years later, 9 years later, my wife and I, you probably know the expenses of raising a child with severe disabilities, and this is
I,
why I
yes,
have
I do.
become so immersed in advocacy around the country, which hopefully we can get into in a bit. I asked Donald, who I continued to have a relationship with. We got back together a year after the lawsuit was settled, and we maintained a good relationship. He helped set up a medical fund for William. Now, keep in mind that was my money, but I had to ask him and his siblings for that money. So that was really the extent. Donald played no physical role in
Mhm.
uh, William's care or anything like that.
Now, in your title, "The Trumps and How We Got This Way," you're kind of saying you as well have that kind of mentality of the Trumps from just the upbringing. It sounds like.
In what respect?
I mean, well, kind of tell me and from the book without giving it away, like how you got this way, the Trumps and how we got this way, because you're a Trump too.
Yeah, I'd like to think I'm a different kind of Trump. People will call me the nice Trump and the quiet Trump up until this point. Um, how we got this way. My grandfather was a very driven guy, intensely driven guy. He was probably the number one builder of apartments in Brooklyn and the second most in Queens. And Donald took that and took it to a much higher level, moving into Manhattan and doing that. But he went further than my grandfather ever did in terms of how he got his power. Donald will use whatever lever is necessary to maintain his need for power and for money.
I can understand that. Now, you had discussed advocacy, that one of the positive things you're doing now is an advocacy. Explain a little bit of that for us, please.
Yeah, again, William is the most courageous and inspirational person I know. He's wheelchair bound. He needs assistance with everything he does. And it gave me the opportunity to advocate on behalf of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And if the book has done anything, it has given me a national platform to go out there and raise awareness. Was honored. I was out at the convention last week at the
The DNC
invite
convention.
of the Harris
Yeah.
campaign.
Hmm.
And the night of the second night, Tuesday, I was invited to a group called the American Association of People with Disabilities. And there I met Debbie Dingell, a representative from Michigan, and great Senator Tom Harkin, who, as you know, was the Senate face behind the ADA. He's the one who put it on the floor. So between those two, we pledged to work together in bringing this community, mostly voiceless community of the disabled, to the forefront and really press either the Harris or the Trump administrations. As you may know, am voting for Kamala Harris, but I will hold their feet to the fire to make sure that this work is done and again, these people are given a voice.
I think it's so important to have that voice, and I'm a former educational advocate, and I fought as in school districts with IEP meetings to make sure that the kids would get the best services
Yeah.
possible. So I know exactly about fighting, and it's fighting for people that just don't have a voice. What great work you're doing there, Dr. Marks. Last question before we run out of time.
Now that you have at least a verbal opening with former President Donald Trump, is he supporting this advocacy program of yours? Is he part of this now?
No, no, and
Okay.
he really wasn't when I visited. I went. I took a group called Equally Alive, a phenomenal organization of advocates, down to Washington several times, and it culminated in a meeting in the Oval Office. And in the end, we're describing the things that we wanted to see happen legislatively, and we have a thought process of how to make these issues more efficient, so less costly, better services. And in the end, I was called back into the meeting after it dispersed, and Donald said, "Hey, pal, how's it going?" I said, "Fine." And he goes, the expenses, these people should just die. So if you want an answer that's kind of a slap in the face, there's your answer on his level of interest and advocacy for on behalf of people with disabilities.
All
Well,
right, so that God, Dr. Marks, we have to run out of time. Real quick thing before. Mhm. All
thank
right.
you for your insights into your book. Your book again is All in the Family. Looking forward to reading it.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So
Thank you.
Fred C. Trump the third. Thanks again. It's available in all finer bookstores, All in the Family, The Trumps, and How We Got This Way. I appreciate it, sir. Thanks again. All right. You're listening and watching to the special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Dr. Robert Marks Show. Guys, take care.